What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, November 6th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 15:05 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Venezuela. So what you're looking at here is a live flight tracker, and we have two B-52 nuclear bombers airborne off the coast of Venezuela. Check this out. We have Tito 42 and Tito 41. These are U.S. strategic nuclear bombers off the coast of Venezuela this afternoon. Right now, they actually just disappeared from the flight tracker, but you can see they both flew along the entire coast of Venezuela, and they did multiple loops here right off the coast of Caracas. So this is extremely serious. It looks like we are on the verge of some kind of massive military operation in Venezuela. I think this would be the fourth or fifth pair of bombers to fly down to Venezuela in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And in addition to that, we have U.S. nuclear war radars active off the U.S. East Coast. And we know that this is some kind of over-the-horizon radar based on its signature on the radio, and it's only being heard in the eastern U.S. Here we have a clip from North Carolina. It's really not much to hear. It just sounds like static, but you can see this really wide signal here on the waterfall of this software-defined radio in North Carolina. And then this one is in Pennsylvania, but if you go to the Midwest or West Coast, this signal disappears. We saw this yesterday as well. So the U.S. has some kind of over-the-horizon long-range radar active along the U.S. East Coast somewhere. We also have a nuclear war command and control plane airborne right now, two B-52s flying over Texas and Louisiana. And we also had this U-2 spy plane rotation, which is very strange. We haven't seen things like this in a long time. So here you can see one U-2 spy plane leaving Breeze Norton in the UK and coming back to the US, to California. And this is a 57-year-old U-2 spy plane. You can see the age is from 1968. So this is an authentic U-2 spy plane from the height of the Cold War. And it's coming back from the UK this afternoon. Now what's interesting is just 2 days ago we had one go to the UK. So it looks like a rotation just happened. Okay, we sent one over there, and now one is coming back. So seems to me like the U.S. is maintaining constant reconnaissance of something with these U-2 spy planes in the European theater, probably spying on Russia. These planes can actually fly over sovereign airspace and remain undetected. There was actually a famous incident during the Cold War when one of these U-2 spy planes were shot down by the Soviets, by the Russians, over Siberia. But they used to fly these over Russia all the time. And then they had the SR-71 Blackbird as well. So it seems like things are escalating on all fronts. We're sending U-2 spy planes to Europe now for regular reconnaissance. We have B-52s off the coast of Venezuela nearly every second or third day now. So guys, make sure you're getting prepared. Also, we have some video footage coming out of Venezuela showing these surface-to-air missile systems being put up along the entire coastline of Venezuela. So let me just play this video for you so you can see. So right there you can see the missiles. I think these are the Buk systems. Those are Russian. So the Buk system is the same air defense system that the Russian rebels used in eastern Ukraine to accidentally shoot down a passenger plane in 2016. It's a very capable system, all right, but there you can see a couple of missiles there. There's some more set up right there. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to use my link. It's in the description below this video. It's preparewithnyprepper.com. So they're selling their 3-month emergency food kit at 30% off. Plus, they're going to throw in an additional month of food. So that's 4 months of food. And the normal price would be $944. And they're selling it at just under $700 for 4 months of food. And this food has a 25-year shelf life. And it's all packed into rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space in your home. And the food is obviously nutritious, which is very important for surviving any kind of SHTF situation. You can also use this food for camping and traveling. But use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get a free month of emergency food with your 3-month emergency food kit from NYPrepper Supply, all at 30% off, just $700 for 4 months of food. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get the deal, and the link is in the description below this video. So this is very concerning. We're on the verge of war with Venezuela, and Venezuela is preparing. Russia is giving them weapons. Okay, the Russian deputy chairman of the Defense Committee of the Russian Parliament said that they have no problems giving Venezuela Oreshniks, okay, which are intermediate range ballistic missiles, also Caliber cruise missiles, which are part of the Club K system. If you're not aware of those, the Club K system is a container-based missile system. So the missiles are stored inside of shipping containers, and they can be launched from the shipping containers, allowing them to be fully concealed. And they can be moved right up to an enemy's coastline. They could load an entire container ship with these missiles and nobody would know. And then they can just park it somewhere or whatever, dock it, you know, drop the anchor and start launching. Okay, so this is very concerning. And what you're looking at here are a bunch of Russian Doomsday planes that left Moscow last night, late last night, early this morning. In particular, one was a Tupolev 214 SR, and another one was a Tupolev 214. Those are known to be used by the Russian president and, you know, the Russian high command, if you will, people like Medvedev or the Russian defense minister or Nikolai Patrushev. Okay, so this is very concerning. It could mean that the U.S. is getting ready to strike Venezuela, and they're moving everyone out of Moscow now. Okay, so very, very serious situation. And last night we had a U.S. nuclear war command and control plane airborne off the coast of Delaware, and it was doing loops all night long into the early morning hours, and that is very unusual considering the timing of it being airborne overnight, all night. Plus it was doing these loops here. Now when you see these planes doing loops like this on the flight tracker, it means that they're actually deploying their trailing wire antenna. They have a massive antenna that can be as long as a mile or even longer, and they fly in loops like that so the antenna stays as straight as possible, as vertical as possible, and then they can transmit signals down to the submarines underwater, in particular nuclear codes. Okay, so our nuclear forces are on very high alert, okay? And also, we had some surveillance planes over Alaska last night for the second or third night in a row. We had E-3 sentries flying over Alaska, probably to keep an eye on any Russian intrusions. We also had a nuke sniffer airborne last night as well. And then, interestingly, we had a U.S. Navy KC-130J Hercules, which is a multi-role C-130 that flew from Puerto Rico, where the U.S. is staging troops to invade Venezuela, to Honduras. Okay, so this is very strange, a multi-role plane with the U.S. Navy flying from Puerto Rico to Honduras. I think this is related somehow to the upcoming operation against Venezuela. Here we have a picture of the U.S. Minuteman III ICBM that was tested yesterday, and it only had one test warhead on it, so no indications so far that the U.S. is up-arming the Minutemans back to 3 warheads after the START treaty expired, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure Trump is going to order the rearmament of all these Minuteman IIIs back to 3 warheads now that the START treaty expired. But we are hearing that Russia is planning to resume nuclear testing. Vladimir Putin instructed the Foreign Ministry, the Defense Ministry, intelligence services, and civilian agencies to draft proposals on resuming nuclear tests, okay? And this is all because of what Trump wrote on Truth Social. Trump wrote that the U.S. is going to resume nuclear testing. So now Putin wants to resume nuclear testing. So, guys, I would not be surprised if somebody detonates a nuke somewhere by the end of this year, okay? And earlier today, Belgium held an emergency meeting due to all the Russian drone sightings over Belgium. Yesterday, they had to close multiple airports, and also these drones over the weekend flew over Klein Brogel, which is an airbase in Belgium that houses U.S. B-61 nuclear gravity bombs, okay? And starting on Friday, the Transportation Department will cut scheduled flights by 10% at 40 major airports unless Congress reaches a funding deal. So, guys, right before the busiest travel season of the year, okay, the next couple of weeks through Christmas and the New Year holiday are the busiest time of the year for traveling, for flying, and we're going to have a shortage of FAA workers, people like air traffic controllers, and because of that, the major airports are going to have to reduce the number of flights, okay? So this government shutdown is now reaching historic levels. We're now up to 37 days, which has beaten the prior record of 35 days, and there's currently no end in sight. So this is all working out to be like a perfect storm. Okay, we got the government shutdown right before the holidays. We got Trump about to attack Venezuela. We have nuclear testing about to resume. We have Europe and Russia on the verge of war. We have the Ukraine war escalating. So things are escalating on all fronts, and then the economy is not doing so good either, okay? Take a look around your local stores and see the prices of different things. Everything is getting more expensive, whether it's sporting goods, whether it's groceries, fuel, everything is getting more expensive. Vehicles, I was just in the sporting goods store yesterday because here in Pennsylvania, the hunting seasons are about to begin, and I was just stocking up on some, odds and ends that I need for hunting season, and I noticed that the prices of everything went up dramatically, okay? So it's not looking too good economically either. And Dmitry Medvedev said that the actions of the U.S. have forced Russia to reconsider nuclear tests, and Russia's defense minister stated yesterday that he considers it advisable to begin immediate preparations for nuclear tests at the Novaya Zemlya test site. That's where the Russians tested the Tsar bomb, which is the largest bomb ever tested by mankind. This is also where they successfully tested the nuclear-powered cruise missile 2 weeks ago. And the U.S. is actively increasing its strategic offensive weapons and consistently withdrawing from strategic treaties, according to the Russian defense minister. So he was accusing the U.S. of withdrawing from treaties and building up their weapons. And I want to also mention to you guys something about this Golden Dome missile system, or air defense, or missile defense. You know, one thing that the Russians are probably treating that as is an offensive weapon, because although the Golden Dome system is mostly designed as a defensive system, who's to say that it can't be used offensively? Okay, it's basically just a constellation of satellites that have missiles, kinetic or explosive missiles that will be used to take out ICBMs that are coming up into low Earth orbit. And who's to say that the U.S. can't use that offensively? Okay, so the Russians are going to treat that as the U.S. is now deploying a first strike weapon into space that cuts the warning time in half or even less. Okay, when you're dropping something from space, the re-entry time is 5 minutes. Okay, you have no time to respond and launch your missiles before they get destroyed, or to evacuate your VIPs. All right, so that is something to consider, and I'm sure the Russians are considering that as an offensive deployment masked as a defensive deployment. Okay. And the Russian defense minister also said that the U.S. intends to deploy missiles in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, whose flight time to central Russia could be just 6 to 7 minutes. I think he specifically mentioned the Dark Eagle hypersonic system, which is a ground-launched hypersonic missile. Okay. And he also said that the U.S. plans to develop a new ICBM. He's talking about the Sentinel to replace the Minuteman. He also said we're developing a new strategic submarine, which is true. We're developing the Columbia-class submarines that are going to replace our current Ohio-class subs from 2030 and beyond. And then he also mentioned that the U.S. wants to recommission missile launchers, okay? So that's the biggest nugget of info from that, is that he was saying the U.S. wants to recommission missile launchers, and that's because the START treaty expired and has not been renewed. And under the START treaty, there's a certain number of what they call launchers, okay, that Russia and the U.S. can have. And the launchers can be either bombers or silos. It can be anything that can launch a nuclear warhead is considered a launcher. So he's talking about the U.S. increasing the number of weapons that they can use to launch nukes, whether it's rearming bombers with nuclear missiles, whether it's putting more warheads on the Minutemans, or rearming some of the silos that we closed down, or adding missiles back to the Ohio-class subs, because the Ohio-class subs can carry 24 submarine-launched ballistic missiles, the Trident missiles. We had to remove 4 from each sub because of the START treaty. And the Belgian military will now start shooting down drones over bases after suspected espionage flights. The drones, described as large, high-altitude aircraft, repeatedly breached airspace over Klein Brogel. Okay, so that's a key NATO base hosting nuclear weapons, including F-16s and F-35s. The most concerning incident unfolded Saturday evening and continued into Sunday. The defense minister of Belgium confirmed in a social media post that 3 separate reports were received overnight. Theo Franken, the defense minister, called the repeated flights a clear mission targeting Klein Brogel, okay, targeting the base where the U.S. houses B-61 gravity nuclear bombs. suggesting the drones were used for espionage rather than accidental overflights. The presence of the suspected drones, which forced the suspension of flights for a critical 20-minute period, triggered an immediate but unsuccessful response. A military-grade drone jammer was deployed in an attempt to neutralize the threat, but failed, possibly due to the target's high altitude or specific radio frequencies. Okay, so jammers work on specific frequencies, and if you know what frequencies the jammers operate on, you can program your drones to use different frequencies so they're immune to those jammers. Okay. Compounding the security failure, a joint pursuit by police and a military helicopter lost the drone after several kilometers as it reportedly flew north towards the Dutch border. So this is very concerning, guys. The Russians are literally flying drones over nuclear bases, okay, nuclear weapons bases in NATO, and NATO cannot neutralize them. They can't jam them. They can't shoot them down. This is just an embarrassment, okay? It makes NATO look very, very weak and incompetent, all right? And that's what the Russians try to do in these situations. They want to expose NATO and show the world that they're not as, competent as people think. And that's what they've been doing with these drone strikes or drone incidents successfully over the last 2 months, whether they sent the drones into Poland, they sent drones into Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Now they're sending them over our nuclear bases. They want to, number one, test us, see what NATO's capable of, and number two, they want to expose NATO, okay? And NATO will now provide Belgium with drone combat assistance. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte spoke with Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken, who provided an update on recent drone sightings in the country. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte discussed the incidents involving drones over Belgium with the country's defense minister and promised the alliance's assistance in addressing them. The NATO press service reported the NATO Secretary General allies are providing welcome support to address the challenge, the press service stated. All three of Belgium's airports in Brussels, Liège, and Charleroi were closed for about 2 hours on the evening of November 4th after unmanned aerial vehicles were spotted over the airspace. Meanwhile, according to Franken, unidentified drones were observed over the Florennes Air Base, where recently delivered U.S. F-35 jets are stationed, and Klein-Brogel, which stores U.S. tactical nuclear weapons. So very, very concerning, guys. And the British Defense Secretary John Healey confirmed that work on a joint UK and German deep precision strike missile is speeding up. It reportedly will have a range of 2,000 kilometers. Okay, so Germany and Britain are developing, looks like a cruise missile, maybe some other kind of missile. I don't know the details of it yet, but probably a large cruise missile similar to a Tomahawk or an AGM-86, which is part of the U.S. nuclear triad, with a range of 1,500 miles. And Poland will start supplying Slovakia with American natural gas to help replace the Russian natural gas. And Zelensky said Ukraine will help Lithuania protect against air threats from Russia and Belarus. So very interesting. And Ukrainian drones targeted the Kostroma GRES, which is Russia's third largest thermal power plant, generates 3.4 gigawatts and powers central regions of Russia, including defense-linked industries. And the European Union may tighten visa rules for Russian citizens as soon as this week, according to Politico. The EU plans to almost completely stop issuing multiple entry Schengen visas to Russian citizens under the new rules. Russians will mostly be granted single entry visas. Okay, so they're tightening the visa rules to just single entry visas, all right? And 3 Chinese exchange students at the University of Michigan were arrested for bringing in biological materials into the United States. Wow. And the Ecuadorian president, Daniel Noboa, says he supports the possibility of providing the U.S. with military bases in Ecuador. So, very interesting. We've seen the president of Ecuador really stand beside the U.S. as a strong ally of the U.S. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with a live update and live monitoring. Follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at NYPrepper1. I started posting updates there regularly throughout the day. Also follow me on Patreon if you want to support this channel and you want to continue to see these regular videos. Please consider following me on Patreon, checking out my sponsors, or donating to my PayPal. Okay, if you want this to be a regular thing, because I have bills to pay and YouTube's been shadow banning me, and I see a lot of you guys are not watching me as much anymore. And so if the trend continues, I'm going to reduce my programming because it's not becoming worth it for me to spend hours to post these videos when I could be doing a lot of other things as with my free time. But that's the latest news I have. I might be back later on tonight. And until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.